Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. I've just come back from a week away with the family for a little bit of a break during the half-term school holidays here in the UK. And I've arrived back to a package waiting for me from Warlord Games, and they very kindly sent me a couple of the new frames or sprues for the Pike Shotte Epic Battles range, which is soon to be released in April. So I have a frame of the infantry and a frame of the cavalry as well. And while I was away, I watched jealously as other people who had been sent review frames showed off pictures and did videos, and I really wanted to get back and have a closer look at the miniatures myself. So you may well have seen excellent reviews before. Reese on the Warlord Games Epic Battles group, which I'm an admin of, and I'll pop a link in the show description as well, worth heading over there. And also Miller, who you may have seen on a previous video when we talked about the launch of this. So Miller from Miller's Miniatures has done a fantastic review of this. So I'm sure you've already seen it, but if you haven't, do go and check that out, and I'll pop a link down below as well. So for this video, I've decided to take a closer look at the infantry, and you'll have to wait a day or so for a second video when I take a closer look at the cavalry sprue. So the sprue gives you everything you need to field one complete pike and shot regiment, which you can use the English Civil War or the 30 Years' War. And the front rank of the pike blocks is represented by these individual pikemen at port. They've got a little bit of flex in them. They're not as delicate as I thought they might be when I first saw them in pictures. So I'm going to stick with them as plastic. I know some people were looking at maybe replacing these. Hopefully I won't need to replace them in the future. Then directly behind them on the base will sit the pike command, which is a bit unusual compared to the other ranges, so they will be slightly hidden, but that's just the way they were. So you have this one strip there with your officer and a couple of ensigns and some more pikemen. And then there are two more strips of pikemen, one with armour and one without, more sort of lighter armour. And I guess you can put them in different combinations if you want. So one could be at the front of the back strip, one could be behind, or you could, with multiple frames, have whole units with them all in armoured or whole units without the armour. So there's a good bit of variety in your units that way. There are four strips of musket sleeves, four different sculpts by the looks of things. Two different sort of styles. Two of them they're sort of standing, and two of them they're advancing slightly. So I suppose you can do your own mix. If you have multiple frames, you could have some units where they're all advancing and some units where they're all standing. I think for this frame as I build it, I'll have the standing ones in the back rank. So scale wise, they compare very well to their previous ranges. I've had a quick look versus my American Civil War and my Napoleonic miniatures. I've not added pictures to the video because for me there's discernibly no difference, and I don't think showing you a picture on the screen is gonna make a lot of difference to that. So officially they are 13.5mm on the eye, but really they're Warlord's epic scale, which compares very, very well with some of the older 15s like minifigs and things like that, but they are smaller than most modern day 15s. However, that being said, Steel Fist Miniatures look like they may compare very well for this. Again, head over to Miller's Miniatures. He's done a little comparison on there because he had some Steel Fist Miniatures from before, which makes some fantastic sculpts by the way, so they look like they might be a company to add some additional bits for those things that Warlord may not cover in the range. As you can see here, I've decided to clean up the miniatures and clip them off the sprue and feed back anything I noticed while I was doing so. Primarily how easy it is to clean up the mould lines. There are not too many on these, but I know that sometimes they can be in slightly difficult places. Overall, they're pretty simple. There seems to be one sort of single continuous mould line, as you'd imagine, over the middle of the miniatures. Very, very easy to remove in most cases. I'm using a mixture of a blade, of a mould scraping tool. This one is a Games Workshop one that I've been using, but you can also grab them from Army Painter as well. And just standard files and things as well. Didn't have any issues anywhere. The mould lines were about what you'd expect, nothing too bad, nothing, there wasn't any areas where there weren't any at all, but as I said, they are around that kind of centre line all over the miniatures, and if you didn't want to move mould lines when you have such a huge amount of miniatures to do, you can quite easily get away with leaving them in place. All I'd say is trim off where the sprue has a all I say is trim off where the models are attached to the sprue, because those bits can look very ugly. But if you fancied leaving the mould line on, I don't think anyone was going to call you out too much for miniatures so small. I found the mould lines on the pikes were very, very minor. And it was very, very easy to place your finger on the top of a pike and then with a sharp blade just run the edge of it down, and it took any small markings off very, very easy. So absolutely no issues here. I can quite happily report back that these aren't hard to clean up, and no harder than you'd expect for miniatures. These are hobbies after all, and we're all used to doing this, so no horror shows here. These are a very clean and nicely detailed set of miniatures that aren't a nightmare to prepare. The individual pikemen take a tiny little bit more work, but that's just because they're not all squashed together in one rank, so you have to take that time of holding them and going around and removing the mould line, if you so wish to, all the way around the miniature, so it does take a little bit longer, but again, no more than you'd expect of miniatures of this size. Now the miniatures themselves do have some sort of areas where the detail is flat. You see here the sword at the back of the pikeman here is it kind of extended, and that's really, I think, from the way these miniatures are sculpted, they are very front and back focused, and you can see that here with the strip. So where you meet to the middle of that line, you'll find sometimes that there is a lack of detail where the way the moulding works, it sort of stretches it across. But this certainly isn't a new thing with the way plastic miniatures are sculpted. So I decided to prep as much as I could, so I'm gluing single ranks onto the bases but leaving the other rank off for painting. You could choose which way round you wanted. I tend to go for the front rank for most normal frames, leaving the back ranks that I can add later on. And I think what you're left with is very typically Warlord Games Epic. Lovely miniatures, they rank up great and look absolutely fantastic on the bases. For the regular pike base, so the one with 2 strips of pikes in the air, I followed the same method, so gluing the front rank on. I think for this option I chose the unarmoured ones to go up the front. I just quite like the look of those, but for future sculpts and when I get more miniatures, when I get my starter set, I may well share them out between different regiments to mix them up a bit. But again, I really like the look of that. I think that looks pretty cool. For the command strip, I've obviously glued the back one on, and I'll have to paint the individual pike separate. There'd be a bit of a nightmare to paint if you glued them all on. But I blue tacked them all in place so I could see what they look like and of course share it with you guys. And that's your finished infantry mixed pike and musket block, and I just love the way it looks, and I'm really looking forward to painting these. I definitely think these are going to take a little longer to paint than the Napoleonic and definitely the American Civil War ranges. While some of the uniforms might compare more with the American Civil War rather than Napoleonic, I think all the multiple elements may take a little bit longer for you to do a whole mixed unit like this, especially those 10 individual pikemen you have at the front. I think what you might see from some people is them dropping a couple of the pikemen at the front and spacing them out just slightly, ending up with a few spares. They're definitely very well squished together, which looks fantastic, but I think 8 on the front would look perfectly usable and suitable as well. But overall, I'm very, very happy with the sculpts. As someone who's new to the period, so I'm looking at it with a very uncritical eye in that sense, and in terms of them being miniatures, which I've had to plenty of my time, I'm very happy with the sculpts. They look pretty cool. I've seen a few comments about how closely ranked the muskets are and things, and I think this is just a nature of the Epic Battles range and product, so to speak, from Warlord Games. And you will get that sometimes that they might be slightly too squished together. Maybe Napoleonic and American Civil War strips are as well, but this is their aesthetic, and that's what you have to bear if you want these plastic strips for these mass ranks. I love the look. I also know that there's always going to be ways you can question historical accuracies on all historical miniatures. I think nothing is perfect, but I do like these, and if you're a fan of the other ranges and you like the look of this, then I'd say definitely go for it. There's nothing to concern you at all. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the comments below. I will do my best to answer them, and if I can't, you'll often find that someone more knowledgeable in the period will answer them in the comments for me. I'm going to start working on painting these soon and doing a painting tutorial. I may split it into 2 parts, so one part focusing on the pike I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you are new to the channel, do check out the other videos. There's plenty of other epic battles stuff for Napoleonic and American Civil War ranges. And there's my initial thoughts video with Miller from Miller's Miniatures, which was probably 2 videos back, and I will definitely pop a link in at the end of this video for that one. Moving forward, you can expect some painting tutorials for these. How many I do, I am not sure. Probably not quite as many videos as I did for the Napoleonic period. I'm looking forward to this game and having some fun with a period that I've had on a list to do for a while, but it is a new period for me, and I probably won't go into it in quite as much depth and detail as I did with the Waterloo range, but I'm definitely going to be covering it nevertheless and enjoying doing so. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give us a like. It shows that you liked it, and I know I'm not doing something too wrong, and it also helps the video get seen by others. If you like what you see on the channel, please do consider subscribing. Look out in a few days for a similar video, but for the cavalry sprue. I say cavalry, it's got a lot of things that are more than cavalry on there, but I think that's the best description of it. And thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.